right.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Let me see how everything is here. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes before we get started. Welcome, welcome. All right. Good morning, Clarence.
Good morning, everybody. Moana, yes, it is very cool. And believe you me, us being the first panel up here, this is great. Oh, UK.
Hello. UK? Hey. I love it. Give it a couple more minutes. Heard about you from Afroflux. Me or James? Both of us?
Yeah,
or about the COD?
Letitia, morning, Sharon. Now, this is good, man. I'm happy to see that everybody is awake on this gracious morning. Look, Nicole, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Wow, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Never thought I'd be on the floor again, man.
Good morning. Hey, all right. Adrian.
Wow.
Definitely. It's a beautiful day.
Beautiful day to be black, y'all, or anything else. But definitely black.
Oh, heavily indebted.
Excellent. All right, let's see. I wish I could see how many participants are here.
28.
Oh, yeah. 28?
Yeah,
I think that's a full room. What you think?
Nana, good morning.
Good morning, y'all. Let's get started. All right. What's up, everyone? My name's Fantastic Frankie. I am a nerd commentator, media personality who dissects comics and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever you're thinking, and kind of connects it to everyday life. I'm here with a good friend of mine, James Boyce from the Party Nerds and Grandmaster FAQ Facts, however you want to say it. I say both ways. So James, talk to everyone, let them know what's up.
Yes, I'm James Grandmaster Facts Boyce. I am the creator of the Facts Project podcast, and I am also one of 8 gentlemen and ladies that are currently on the Party Nerds podcast. I am a content creator and a basically history buff of all things comic books.
Interesting. I love it. So today we're talking about Black people breaking archetypes in the nerd space. And as James mentioned, both of us are, let's call it nerd connoisseurs and history lookers, anthropologists of nerdology, whatever you want to say. And we just kind of want to, yeah, that's a good one, right? I need to coin that. But yeah, we just kind of want to go through what our experience is and what we've noticed growing up in this nerd space. So yeah, we spoke a little bit about who we are. My name is Frankie. A little bit about myself. I am a millennial, Gen Xer, Wire, whatever. I always forget what we're called. But yeah, I'm definitely right in the middle of that generation. So I kind of grew up on analog and was there for the transition of digital. So today I definitely want to talk about how my experience with this content reflects my generation. And James?
Right. Also with myself, I mean, I'm a little bit further beyond. I'm more so in the Generation X category. So I pretty much sat in the analog age for a little bit longer until we approached the digital age. So most of the characters that we've seen throughout Black culture, whether it's been in comics or in sci-fi, have more so been in progression up to now than anything.
Yes, absolutely. And I just can't really wait to get into it. So James, talk to us a bit about how heroes were introduced to you in Gen X.
For me personally, of course, everybody, as far as the visual aids are concerned, you can see basically through what we're showing here is that introduction personally was through Lando Calrissian. 1984 Empire Strikes Back into Return of the Jedi. So yes, and note, this panel alone is in Avery Brooks' Stan account. Okay, so from Spencer for Hire, him being a sidekick, to A Man Called Hulk, to Star Trek Voyager. The man was everything to me as far as like the 80s into the 90s was concerned. He was like the biggest person that I saw on screen and just notarized everything that I've kind of like put forward as what a hero should be. Okay. Then we basically got into the caricatures because, of course, at that time we did not have Marvel and DC at that time. So, you know, we pretty much had to make our own comics. So when you had characters like Meteor Man, Robert Townsend's great movie, for anybody that doesn't understand it, that is an excellent, underrated movie as far as testifying what the Black experience, if there were superheroes involved, is concerned. It definitely stands out. And approaching into the 90s to where we see it now. But the thing is, what I'm showing here is only a minimal act of what we could achieve as far as the protagonists that are concerned. And no, what we have up here, there are no female protagonists. There was not that many female leads, which furthermore gathers into this account. But definitely, and I see the chat room. Everybody loves Avery Brooks. I love Avery Brooks. The man doesn't get his due.
All right. So then we move kind of into Gen Y, which is my generation, the millennials. And I think it's interesting what you said there, James, that, you know, you had some of this, you know, these Black heroes that were shown to you, but yeah, none of them were women. And, you know, as a Black woman and a Black little girl, you know, I didn't really have that representation that you had. And it was just an interesting transition how the 80s transitioned to the 90s, where in the 80s there were Blaxploitation, the Black middle class started to grow, and some of these studios were like, all right, let's address this, let's give them some things to watch. And then the 90s hit, and they kind of took a step back. So growing up, I had to kind of identify with either Black men or white women. There was really nothing in between. So yeah, Static Shock was something I liked. He was in, you know, New York. He was, to me, my version of Spider-Man, this young kid just trying to figure out, you know, how to make do while saving the city, right? He wasn't a kind of world hero. And that was something I resonated with. And then X-Men, the animated series came out first. And I got to see Storm animated, moving, talking, which was very interesting to me. I liked comic books before then, and I was and you know, I'm just going to bring that up, Nicole. I was reading it with my dad, and it was interesting to me that Storm had that accent because she was American in the comic books, right? She's African, but she was an American African, right? So it made me feel, what's the word? It made me feel a little less than, like, Storm had to be African to be valid. You know what I mean? And I think that was me. And I remember speaking to my dad about it, and he was like, don't be picky, be glad. You know what I mean? But it was just interesting. And then, you know, Halle Berry came, I was around 12 or 13. And she still wasn't the Storm that I'd read about, right? She wasn't this old, they was getting her to make ice and like just kind of pick up the ship and stuff like that. But then this renaissance happened with female heroes, with Laura Croft and Resident Evil and stuff like that, Batman and Robin, where they were showing that women could actually, you know, do things, right? Be in charge, be in the head, be their own person. And, you know, it was just a very interesting thing to kind of see that change there, you know?
Yeah. And also, just to piggyback off of what you said, what we started to see as far as the transition was concerned was the fact that a lot of stereotypes and caricatures that were made for a lot of Black characters started to dissipate a little bit. This can be said for Roadblock from G.I. Joe, a Black character within a white cartoon who just happened to rhyme every time that he talked. Insulting? Yes. You know, but unfortunately, it was the only character that we had at that time. So a lot can say for a lot of people that watched Transformers as a kid that Jazz also talked in rhyme, which was during the time of commercialization and hip hop and everything like that. So they had to incorporate that in their characters. And yes, Nicole, it was extremely frustrating.
It's funny. I always talk about Killer B and Naruto. So like Naruto came a little bit later. I was definitely older. But I do remember that, there was zero black people in Naruto and we was rocking hard. People were basically becoming kamikaze socially, right? A social kamikaze by, doing a Naruto run in the hallways and they wasn't showing us. So after the studio heard us and like whatever, they finally introduced, of course they introduced a full village. They start with Killer B, right? First black character in Naruto. And he rapping poorly. And he got bleached blonde braids,
Yeah.
right? And I was offended for a while, but then, Killer B was getting busy. You know what I mean? So it was just, I get what you're saying. It's this weird, like, double-edged sword where you're like, I like this character. I'm glad I'm being represented. I do be rapping. But also, like, that's not everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're asking for the representation and you're asking for like pretty much a stronghold of the characters that you know and love. And then all of a sudden, the first thing that oozes out their mouth is a stereotype. And then you're like,
yeah,
if this is how we're going to just like carry ourselves, it's not going to make sense to anybody. They're going to think that we're all acting that way.
Exactly. And it makes me think, like, is that what you think about me whenever I'm introducing myself to someone outside my race? You think I'm just going to bust out in rhymes? Because you're going to be disappointed. Oh, man. And, Moana is talking about something that's very serious. Gen X and Gen Yers still don't have enough Pacific Islander representation.
This is
I can think of three, right? Moana, Lilo and Stitch, and my all-time favorite, The Rock, okay, who is currently a superhero beyond being Black Adam. The Fast and Furious movies have long since been sci-fi, right? So, we're getting there, but you're right, there's not enough. All right. And yeah, people were talking about how Killer B is so problematic. I agree. Yeah, I could go on and on about that.
It's true.
So Jay, can you talk to me a bit about Black male heroes in mainstream media?
So we brought up this panel, and note this is also transitioning from the 80s and 90s into the 2000s. So we got a little bit more characters as far as it was concerned with Blade, Hancock, Luke Cage, Dr. Manhattan, who we currently seen recently. So when we got introduced to Blade, which was pretty much the Kickstarter, and I tell everybody this verbatim, Blade was the Kickstarter for the MCU. Regardless of how the MCU was being realized with Iron Man, it wouldn't have happened without Blade. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Blade was the first trilogy in the Marvel universe. And literally the reason that they can make movies in the fashion that they do now is because of Wesley Snipes and Blade. The only thing that proved to be a little problematic is that Blade in the movie never spoke about his identity as being Black. He spoke about his identity as being a vampire, but he never referred to himself as Black at any point in time in any of the movies. When it came to Hancock, it was like, okay, Marvel and DC hadn't really kicked off or anything yet, so we had to create our own character. Will Smith did a fabulous job as Hancock. But the thing is, it started a little bit of a trope that was happening there. You had an alcoholic, drunk superhero who needed the aid of his white counselor in order to propel himself back to the superhero origin in which he was. So it was like, it was cool, but then it was like, damn, like why does he have to have this bit of an addiction, emotional trauma, and everything like that in order to push his agenda forward? Again, the white savior.
The white savior.
Trope. Now, when we get into the 2000s, we get a little bit more representation. Luke Cage, regardless of how people felt about the Netflix show, was the first time where we saw representation within the neighborhood outside of Meteor Man, where you saw Harlem in its essence, like basically a Black Harlem with Luke Cage in it. Now, note, Luke was originated in the 70s. He was almost looked upon in the comics as a blaxploitation character and carried on as such to where it spoke on how he talked. He did not cuss. He did not say the word nigga. This was his thing, but how he was portrayed in the show was just excellent. And then to have one of I think one of the greatest characters that I saw portrayed was Yaya's portrayal of Dr. Manhattan recently in the Watchmen series. And the thing is, we're going to capitalize on that more. We're going to talk about that more, because this, of course, is a case study into Lovecraft Country and Watchmen because of where we are right now.
Yeah, I have a couple questions here, James, because you made so many great points. I guess the first one would be with Hancock and Blade, as you mentioned. They don't explicitly mention how it is for them as Black men, but they are tied to being Black regardless, and their experience is different.
This is true.
Besides that, how do you feel about that? Because on one end, I do want us to be represented in a way that where we just exist. A great example now would be like Artemis Child, the new Incredible Hulk. They never truly talk about him being Asian, right? They talk about him just being like, headstrong and things like that. So it's like at one point, I want us to exist in this space where we could just be something. Yeah. But in the other end, it almost feels disrespectful, right? To be like, to ignore something that shapes us so incredibly. And
no, what exactly you're talking about is the problem that I would say that we have with us not being included in the writer's room. So when we're not talking about the perspective of identity, so we're identifying as the character in which we're portraying, and basically putting that out there on a broad spectrum. But then also in that same essence, we're not getting the caricatures anymore. We're not getting the stereotypes, because that would definitely just be super offensive or anything like that, because people have now become cognizant of how these characters are being portrayed. So now it's like, okay, let's give him the identity that he currently has, but let's just not bring up the Black thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's how I see it, and it's extremely weird, but I get it. Okay, we want representation for them to be the Black superhero, but the thing is, also in that second tier, it's like, yeah, but we can't bring up the Black experience at all. Let's just try to like stay away from that. But no, it's part of his identity too.
Right. And I think that's what's so important about the Black Panther movie. I see a lot of even Black people, well, let me say Black men, complain about the Black Panther movie. And I think the biggest part about that is that in the movie, the biggest heroes were all women, but that's a totally different discussion. But because there were Black people, a Black director, Black writers, Black costume designers, right? We got what we wanted. T'Challa saw himself as a hero, okay? He saw himself as a Wakandan, but like as a Black man, fighting this struggle that we all did, I feel like T'Challa didn't, right? And he filled that space that we're talking about with Hancock and Blade. But then Killmonger was speaking to us, where we're like, you cannot separate the two. And just to see that combat and to say like, yes, we are at war with ourselves, right. I thought is what we need. You're right. You're so right. And like you said about Luke Cage, on the other hand, that was black, and still mainstream, right? So we can still be mainstream.
Yeah, because the biggest thing that I see, of course, with Black Panther was so ideal. And the thing is, it created an ideology. That whole movie could have been on mute. The whole movie could have been on mute. You couldn't, if you put that on mute and just watch the visuals of what a world would have been like without colonization, and just basically seeing T'Challa enter Wakanda for the first time, and you see what could have been, and to notice that, like I said, the whole movie could have been on mute, and just to see that, you would have been in awe of it. It would make all the sense in the world.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's funny. I always talk about it. I'm like, y'all don't know what they did. To me, that movie was on par with what J.K. Rowling did with Harry Potter. they created a world that can become its own multiple of stories, right? There could be a Wakanda part of the Disney, if we ever open again, of the Disney, Disneyland or Disney
I hope
World,
it's
and we will, right? We would have cuisine, we would have this, we would have that, we would have traditions that they created on that. And I guess what it really did was kind of show people, I always see that like the Black stories can't be mainstream, right? But I'm like the Viking story, I could watch, dirty white people rape and pillage, and get injected into that culture with no problem. I can watch a space story where I'm learning about Klingons and stuff like that, and that's no problem. So, I think it's really interesting there,
I have to agree with Black Gay Comic Geek. He said if they make a Wakanda world, I'll be on the first flight to Disney. My ticket is booked. Straight.
You think it's booked? Yo, you said it a cheese? It's gonna be expensive.
Look, I'm about to go, but we got to get past this parallelogram that we're.
Oh my gosh! All right, so yeah, let's move on. So now I want to talk about the rise of the Black female hero in mainstream media. And you guys, I want to first make a note before I even discuss this, that if you notice, every single piece that I have up there has been shot, drawn, written in the last 3 years.
3 years. The last years, people.
The last. Yes. Superhero Storm was never a main character, right? Nubia, someone else who was introduced to us, and there's a panel coming out later where the new writers and stuff are going to talk, who are going to do justice by Nubia, who was originally written by white men. It's a totally different panel. These are all Black women who were sidekicks or angry or like this thing that, I didn't identify with. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not really an angry person. I'm actually like, people are like, oh, Frankey, you're always angry. I'm not. I'm pretty chill. I roll up. I'm just here to enjoy the stuff. And I guess what really radicalized me is that I didn't, until recently, see myself. Karima always talks about her show that Misty Knight, if you guys kind of gave her the robotic arm, walked so that Fiona Paris and my girl Javicia in the bottom could run, okay? As you can see, my hair looks like 3 of the girls in this picture here, which is something I've never seen experience. You know what I mean? And also, I want to talk about the nuances here in what we're starting to see. Jodie Smollett is a light-skinned biracial woman, okay, who normally would be like, who normally will talk and be, I'm sorry, the screen changed. I was like, I don't know why. But normally when we would see a light-skinned woman, right, she's helpless. She's this damsel in distress, or she's here to steal someone's man, right? That is the stereotype that light-skinned women are. I'm right here on the border, so I never know where to go. But either way, Journey was strong, okay? She knew how to use her strength, and she never took anything. And she saved the men more than one.
Absolutely.
On the other side, Hippolyta, right? Hippolyta is thick, right? She's in the top right corner. You guys all the way to the right. Hippolyta was thick. She's over 40, okay? And she got a thick old body, y'all. I saw somebody with a real body nude on TV, y'all. But I was able to see someone like Hippolyta go, and it was just very interesting to see how different. Now she's feminine, and she's still embracing herself as a woman and still being really, really strong. And it was something I really, really loved. And the same with Regina King. Y'all, what Regina King showed me, which is she's right there in the middle, Sister Night. As you see, her face is covered, her eyes are covered, and I always saw from directors that they didn't use Black people because we couldn't be light, we couldn't be shown, blah, 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 blah. And they had scenes of Regina King fighting in the night in all Black with Black paint on her face, okay? And you could still see her facial expressions. You can still see her doing things. And I just was like, so everything y'all told us was a lie, and we can be there, we can be watchable, Right. So I know there's a lot, but there's definitely a lot there. James, I don't see you anymore.
Oh,
Let's
I wonder why.
see. I don't know if you're saying anything here.
I am still here.
Do you guys see James? Let me know in the chat. Lost him for a second.
I would hope so.
Yes, you guys heard everything I said, right? Okay, everybody, you guys are on it. I love it. And you're back, James. I said?
I heard everything you said. Absolutely.
Oh, wait. Okay. So what's your
Now,
comment on there? There we go.
basically, just to back off of what was brought up here. Note that we said that all these characters within this frame here are all from the past 3 years. We had not seen a heavy amount of Black female protagonists in a lot of shows, series, movies in general, for a very, very long time, because of the scarcity of it, which was weird, because film was basically not wanting to carry on with Black female leads and not knowing how they would be portrayed, or let alone make dollars. And it's the stupidity of it that makes it a problem for me. So now we have these characters where we're coming on with Monica Rambeau currently in the WandaVision series, who is doing an absolute fantastic job. To all the female leads that were pretty much enamored in Lovecraft Country with Dee, Hippolyta, Letitia fucking Lewis, as we like to call her. Sorry for cussing. But the CW's new characterization of Batman, and of course Misty Knight, who basically, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Letitia. She knew what I was talking about. I'm sorry for cussing again. but the thing is, on and on and on. You know, we've already had a lot of these characters now with the CW's Batman and Monica Rambeau. Monica Rambeau has a tumultuous past in comic books. You know, she was notarized as the first female Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers, but yet Carol Danvers is the first female Captain Marvel that you saw on screen. So what did they do with the character? They retconned it, which is something that they usually do in comic books. And when they retconned her, they turned her into a child that grew up into the character of being Carol Danvers' best friend's daughter, and then pushing on from that to where she's now serving as this identity as Spectrum. Now, note, in the beginning of me watching that show, I was like, okay, how are they going to portray Monica Rambeau? And how is this going to come out? Because she is such a strong character. How can we make her look good? And I got to say that Marvel's actually doing an excellent job with the show and with her character in general.
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, James, because as a woman, as a Black woman, it was me, right? Because Marvel and not one of them had a female lead. So finally, I get one, and it's Captain Marvel, and yes, it's the white Captain Marvel. And as you said, there's so many different iterations. We know how Hollywood works. They're like, yo, you want us to put in a woman and a Black woman? Yeah, wow. I think that's what they were talking about.
Right.
But either way, it was hard because I felt myself tearing myself between my Blackness. And I'm like, which one do I have to rep more here? But then, as you said, but they did put her in the movie. So I was like, all right, so they're opening up the door there for me. And then if you guys are not up to date on WandaVision, y'all playing yourselves because it is fuego. And Tiona Paris is all up in there. She's all up in that, just as much of a main character as Wanda. And she's strong. She's well respected. She's everything I wanted her to be. And I'm actually happy that they brought her in now where they can make her OP and stuff like that, because Spectrum, Photon, they are OP, right? And to be honest, all the women that they introduced in the first phase of Marvel, first two, I forget how these phases go, but the first half, they were scared to show that these women were OP. And I would have been tight if they introduced her and she was just throwing up sparklers like Jubilee and not really coming in with this heat. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And just to see Tiona now, she's thick, okay? She got a twist out. She's a commanding presence everywhere she goes. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see them interact on the most recent episode, there is at least 3 scenes where there's not one white man, present, y'all. Not one, okay? It's Wayne. My boy Wayne is in there. There was an Indian woman, and then there was Tiona.
Yeah.
And they out here regulating stuff. And I was like, this is, you know what I'm saying? Y'all out here packing the best. Y'all out here doing this. And y'all, it just really warms my heart to see, you know, what Generation Z is getting able to be exposed to, and us, you know, as long term, just to see that
Right.
transition.
Because it's something that we've pretty much fought for as viewers for a very long time. I mean, and no, we just couldn't break that wall in order to get it in the 80s and 90s to where we're getting it on a regular basis now. And it's happy to see that these kids are getting like they're getting adapted to a lot of these characters like early on, like within their childhood. Now, no, you know, most comics haven't had the opportunity to basically serve the spectrum, whether it's entertaining to children, which a lot of us got the notion to in comics. So with the pretty much, I guess, like the adaptation of maybe Miss Marvel, Moon Girl, and Devil Dinosaur, which is another dope black character, which is going to come out like pretty soon in an animated form. These are other characters that a lot of people are going to get to see pretty soon.
Yeah. And it's funny, people were talking about Randall Park, who is incredible, hilarious. I love what Marvel's doing with comedians, right? And transitioning them to become the best characters with like Bill Burr and stuff. And I love that the 2 favorite characters in this series are what people considered via poll, you guys, I'm not making this up, the least desirable, right? The Black women and the Asian men are the least desirable, and they're out here, you know, setting standards. And I'm really here for it. And also, you guys will notice that Wu is sympathetic and empathetic, right? And it goes without saying, because he's an Asian, he's a person of color, right?
Yep.
That we can understand nuance in a way that this white man, who I love that they let you know from the rip that he is a villain, right?
Yeah.
He can't connect in the way that someone of color could. And I love that they're putting that on the forefront. All right, so am I clicked on here? Let me see. All right, so this is what y'all all been waiting for, and I'm ready for it too. Let's talk about the effects of last year, y'all. Both of these things came out last year. Let's talk about the effects of Lovecraft and Watchmen. James, I'm gonna start with you, man.
Yeah. So, all right. First off, last year, these 2 shows, Lovecraft Country on HBO and Watchmen on HBO, maybe HBO's killing it or anything like that. So what I will say about these 2 shows in general is the adaptation process in which these were made. For one, if anybody has read The Watchmen as a comic book back in the early 80s, there were no black characters whatsoever. And if you had read Lovecraft Country, the book by Matt Ruff, or have read into H.P. Lovecraft's Lovecraftian horror stories, his sci-fi and horror stories. So you're talking about Alan Moore, who gave you Watchmen. You got Matt Ruff, who gave you Watchmen. I'm sorry, Lovecraft Country. But the thing is, H.P. Lovecraft being notoriously racist, and to see his stories inverted into black characters is just excellent. All right. So then you have the Watchmen basically deriving the characters of Dr. Manhattan, staging the events of him leaving Earth, but his return to Earth, he had to pretty much disguise himself. Of course, he was originally brought out as a white character, but the thing is, in order for him to return, he felt he needed to disguise himself in order to integrate with society one more time. And what did he do? He put himself in the body of a black man. And in this event, you know, we have the Will Reeves, and we get all these historical perspectives. Both series had historical references towards Tulsa, and put that out there for the world, because a lot of people didn't even know about the Tulsa race riots in the beginning. So it was excellent to see because of the inversion that happened amongst these 2 stories.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things there that you touch upon that you're right, I love. The first thing being with Watchmen, was not just that there were no black people, but all of the women in Watchmen, the comic book, were tools. Okay, all of them were used or raped or just something for the male characters to step upon to gain whatever they wanted. You get what I'm saying? And I love that. I love that. You know, Misha rolled up. She's the one who did. Misha rolled up and was like, "Look, y'all, let's make this black be black, black, black. Okay,
Indeed.
Let's make Dr. Manhattan. Let's make it black. Let's do this. Let's talk about Tulsa. Let's do that." And I want to mention, you know, you said that he came in to integrate, became a black man. He didn't become a black man to hide. He became a black man because he knew that's what black women wanted. And one thing that I think that they kind of touched upon but really didn't explore was that how ridiculous it seemed to the world that Dr. Manhattan would choose a black woman as his mate to change, you know? And even Laurie was like, confused and stuff like that. And that's why Laurie was kind of beefing with, you know, she kind of butt heads with Regina. That draws to him. And then moving to Lovecraft, what it showed me is it took what Watchmen did for us and then pushed it even further by showing us black people, Jones type, in this like Amazonian type thing, and they showed us that every genre that people said they couldn't relate to could be just as good with black leads. And it was validating. It was definitely 100% validating to know that, you know, everything that these people were saying that it wouldn't work was working, you know?
Yeah. So
and
like,
horror.
Yeah, because initially, of course, with Jordan Peele taking on his I would say his aura into the horror genre, it was only right to see that like Lovecraftian horror was going to get adapted, but to see it adapted with a full black experience was just beyond anything I could have imagined. So because H.P. Lovecraft had within this notoriously racist background, saw people of color as villains or monsters or some people who were like subhuman in his stories. But then to see this and see characters like Hippolyta and Atticus going into the effects of their everyday lives with this historic spectrums, going through the Green Book segregated Chitlin Circuit South, you know, and then basically just like arriving and showcasing the tropes of how if magic was given to black people, how would that be portrayed? And it came out in a beautiful fashion. You know what I'm saying? The passing on of generational magic to the youth, or passing it on from and showcasing like the elders of these families and everything, of just passing down secrets, of showcasing that yes, they have magic as well. That's what stood out.
Right. And someone mentioned it too. It's hard to criticize Lovecraft when we have so few representation. But I do have to say that it is not without flaws. And the biggest reason for those flaws are because the source material was written by a white man. And we forget that. So there was definitely issues I had. And my biggest issue is what you're talking about, was that I like that all of the maps handed by white people, but it was because they were stolen, right? But at the same time, they didn't focus on like Afro-Caribbeans, things like that, them having their own magic. And I think that would have been something to really look into. In the way that Kimiko and in Korea, they had magic, I would have loved for us to explore the voodoo side, you know, which they talked about, which showed had validity.
They showed a glimpse.
They rolled up and was like, right, they could have rolled up. They could have had an episode where they rolled up to New Orleans and was like, "Yo, we need help, y'all." And I think I would have really excited. I would have really loved it. And some of that too, some of the issues that I'm talking about is because they didn't get a green light for the second season until after the season was done. Way too long. They took way too long to show them the second season. So, they're trying to wrap up this huge story in one season, not knowing where it wants to go. And then they made choices that will ultimately maybe negatively affect the series. One being taking away the main antagonist, which was white people. Oh, and also, y'all, I'm Afro-Latina. I would have loved if they rolled up with some Dominicans, okay, and was like, yo, let's go ahead and get some Santo Domingo, kill these white folks. Because, I just would have really loved some Black Dominicans, because that's a huge, even them exploring that too, right? The segregation within some of these Latin countries and how that magic is taken and stuff like that. I don't know. It would have been really, really great. And yeah, anything is possible. We don't know where it's going, but that's what I love about this, is now we have a door open for it,
Exactly. Yeah, anything is off limit. Anything it can be put on the table. You can introduce the brujeria, the santeria portion of the Afro-Latino experience. You can do that now. You can experience the voodoo portion of the religions that are like basically put forth in Haiti and a lot of portions of the Caribbean. You can do that now, because the thing is, the concept of how it's going to be portrayed is going to have an audience.
Yeah. I love that. And I would love to see that diversity there in magic. And I love that they addressed that Black people, right, and through Christianity, which is brought to us, right, that our own beliefs are satanic. So hearing Tick's mom talk about how she thought the magic was satanic, right? And her even talking to her grandmother, and her learning that, no, this is our history. This is something that we need to embrace as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, y'all getting deep here, because, that's another conversation. And I don't want to attack Christianity or anything like that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just saying that, there is aspects of our core religion, which we were born with, right, in Africa and stuff like that. I saw Beyonce dressed like a deity, the goat, and people were like, oh, she's being satanic. She's part of Illuminati. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This is an African goddess that she has, So I just think it's very interesting.
All
right. So that goes into this heat right here.
Yes. All right. So
talk to me.
The magical Negro trope. Okay. This has always been a continuation in a lot of movies. And note, for anybody that does not know about the magical Negro trope, it's the basically supporting Black characters whose only purpose is to help the white hero. Okay. This has been a problem from jump, and it's something that we want to stay away from as much as we can. For anybody that understands a lot of, I guess, a lot of examples of this would be Green Mile, Mr. Coffee, Michael Clark Duncan, the great Michael Clark Duncan, as well as Bagger Vance with Will Smith. You can even go as far back as the Song of the South, the old Disney movie, where basically the protagonist in that movie had to sing songs to the child in order for him to get better. Oh, Uncle Remus, yes, thank you. but it seems to be happening a lot. You know what I'm saying? So the sidekick thing is also a part of this. So when I saw somebody basically just pop up about Falcon, how he was the supporting character for Captain America for all this long. Now, no, Falcon's about to get his lead and everything like that. Yes, Stephen King does love this trope. He loves to pull that out of his hat, where he's utilized the magical Negro trope a few times. You can especially do this in horror, because it seemed like, and it also portrays back into the Black martyr trope, where basically in order to achieve injustice, you have to fight, then you die, and then all of a sudden we achieve happiness. So that stereotype, the martyrdom that happens around most of these stories it's a crossroads that we have to get beyond, that the hero just can't like save the day and the story just turns out to be a happy ending. It has to be totally something else in between. Now, what I can say with Watchmen and Lovecraft Country is that Atticus and Dr. Manhattan, two black characters basically within these storylines, both had to die in order for the black female protagonist to continue on the story. Now, we don't know exactly where these storylines are going to go with Lovecraft Country and Watchmen. Watchmen, we might only get one season. Lovecraft Country, we were hoping for a second season. But the thing is, what it meant in those last couple of episodes of each of these seasons, where we saw them pass on their power set to black female protagonists, was definitely a move forward.
You know, I think something interesting here, and I wanted to mention, y'all. So I put T'Challa up here, not because of how he was in Black Panther, right? But he served as the magical Negro and everything else in the universe, right? In Civil War, he was the one bringing order, right? He would come, clean things up, and the white people would get into order, right? He was serving as that calibrator, let's say.
Right.
And then on top of that, we see things like Endgame, right? And Infinity War, where they bring fight to his home. The only black foreign country. Right. And then when it's time in Endgame, that big battle, right?
Somebody put Morpheus. Somebody put Morpheus. Morpheus definitely qualifies.
Yes. But yeah, in Endgame, we see that the Wakandian army is the only army there. Okay, so he brought his people to die. Okay, we ain't see no U.S. army there. They was in game, right? They know what's up. Captain America there. War Machine is there. So what's up? Why is it just up there? And that's why I put him up there. But yeah, I think the biggest thing here that we need to see, and the difference between what's a magical Negro and a Negro with magic, is what we're seeing now. Tiona Paris as Spectre is a Negro with magic, okay? Her having magic is not to serve a purpose there. And I can't speak because the series is not done. So maybe they'll disappoint me in the 2 episodes left. But so far, her having magic, one, she's been doing things without magic. She's capable, but she's not there as a platform to serve the main character, which is Scarlet Witch, okay? Versus, as you mentioned, Dr. Manhattan is the most powerful being in the universe. And he sacrificed. You know, it is in his nature, but still, he had to die, right? They made the black man the most powerful being in the universe, and they're like, yeah, but not for long, you know? And I think, as you said, Tina, the sacrifice part is key to what a magical Negro is.
That's where the martyrdom comes from. Yep.
Yeah. And save for Atticus. I was like, why he had to die?
He didn't have to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So someone says Monica powers aren't necessarily magic. And when I say magic, y'all, I mean anything out of the ordinary. And even, you know, just a magical trope, Negro trope, can be even beyond that, right? James, we talked behind the scenes about Will Smith. Movie again?
What
I
you
forgot.
talking about? Bagger Vance?
Yes. That's still a magical Negro trope without him actually having magic, you know? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically it's weird because you have a character who is aiding this white man in order to propel his golf game. If you have this much magic, why don't you get out there on the golf course, win you some damn championships? Why are you helping this man out?
Right.
Like you sitting there basically creating the fact that he could be better and showcasing like his skills and his talent to him and everything like that. It's a weird translation because if I have a specific skill set that I know I can do what it takes to win, why am I aiding someone else in order for them to do it?
But that's the Stockholm syndrome we sit with, right?
Yeah.
I won't be able to push myself that far. That's why we're going to do this. You know what I mean? And I think that's very interesting. So, you guys, we got like 10 minutes left. I want to open up the floor here, y'all. Yo, ask us questions. Let us know what's up before we get booted out of here.
For the Q&A, we have actually some questions in the Q&A.
Ooh,
So
let me go ahead and move that. All right.
Let's see.
Okay.
So yeah,
Where do you, the first one,
Pablo Martinez.
where do you see characters of color be? Yeah, where do you see people of color in 5 years?
I mean, to be honest, there's so many out there that haven't been adapted. And no, and I'm saying haven't been adapted either cinematically, through TV, or anything like that. We haven't seen that often. But what I see necessarily is that we are able to pretty much touch on a lot of characters that haven't seen the light of day. So when we talk about Adam Brashear and Blue Marvel, when we talk about Amadeus Cho and the was it Totally Awesome Hulk series, when we're talking about Ilo Norman's adaptation of Mr. Miracle in DC, and in sci-fi, like in Andy Okafor, who has like her sci-fi series built around like African folklore. Like those characters can be done in Night Thrasher, Binti, yes. All these characters can be portrayed in this type of fashion. There's storylines. The thing is, there's multiple storylines about Night Thrasher. Had a series that went on for about like 3-4 years. There's only been like a few characterizations of Blue Marvel in the Ultimates. There's only been a few characterizations of Shiloh Norman. Shiloh Norman was my first Mr. Miracle that I read as a child. You see behind me all these comic books. Bishop is another. All these comic books, these are all indie writers. So there is tons of material that a lot of people can carry on.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting here, when you mentioned how much source material, y'all, Marvel and DC, especially Marvel, are using the source material as a guideline in creating their own universe. So all they need is just a little bit, I think, to create these characters and bring them to life. And that moves into Mike Tony's question. Hey, Mike, what characters of color do you want to see on the big screen? And y'all, I'm not going to lie, big or small, I'll say small scene too. Marvel out here taking names, okay? I'm seeing Riri rolling up. I just saw Miles Morales in Brooklyn with ones on, y'all. Listen, come on, listen to Sway Lee. I love it. I definitely want to see Icon because I want to see that nuance, right? Especially with the type of political climate. I want to see him fight with Rocket during the Trump era. I gotta see that. You know what I'm saying? And who else? And I'm really excited to see with DC where how this new character Nubia will be. And then I want her adapted too. Why not?
This is true. Was it so Brian O'Hara says, how will the economic power of people of color drive the presentation of people of color? All right, so basically for the past 10 years, we've pretty much seen a lot of executives happen in the form of media and entertainment, and have had a boatload of influence. Reginald Hudlin is a big example of this, having adapted Black Panther comics before. Ta-Nehisi Coates writing Black Panther comics and having an opportunity to put his stamp on a lot of Black Panther and Captain America comics, I might add. But to see the writers' room change, Misha Green, who basically we just talked about in Lovecraft Country, her shaping that show for a lot of writers in the writers' rooms. For those of you that like hop on social media and everything like that, you will see a lot of characters, animators, who are basically fledgling and getting up there in ranks. When you basically see Frank Abney's Canvas being a short story on Netflix and everything like that, this is a Black animator who basically took on a short story and showcased a Black experience for no longer than 9 minutes. And it was great. And that's what that focal point is.
All right. Awesome. I'm sorry. I just took off my screen. Someone asked if they could see us better. So
yeah.
Good question. You're frozen. I don't know if you said anything else.
Oh, man.
But what are your presentation of American Gods in the show. And, you know, y'all, we could put a whole new presentation on this, because even my boy Orlando, played wilding out here as a Nazi. The African Gods on there were too black for the, you know what I'm saying? And he tried to dim down their blackness, and, you know, it was a lot.
Right. Right. And it's hard to see with American Gods. No, your screen's black, Frankie. Yeah, but with American Gods, as far as like Mr. Nancy, Orlando Jones's portrayal of that character and how it pretty much like moved forward, the staple, everybody pretty much replays the act of speech, of writing that happened amongst his character and how he lifted up people of color throughout that entire series. And yet, in season 3, he eventually is no longer in his role, and
right.
which is disappointing, to say the least. And then we're pretty much like looking at nothing in season 3, as far as like, they didn't even tell him he was fired, and and it stopped a lot of people like myself from watching. I didn't watch season 3 at all.
Yeah. This is another question that I love. What do you think of Lafayette? You know, rest in peace, in True Blood. Y'all, I loved Lafayette in True Blood. We talk about representation, and the thing is, for Black people, typically when we're represented in this space, we are cisgender, feminine, masculine people. So to see Lafayette, okay, a gay man, okay, who's, you know, living in his who's in this like hick town, but still like, yo, I'm gonna live my life, okay, and then still like fighting vampires and stuff like that, I think was the early signs that we were ready for this type of representation in this space. There's a scene that will forever live rent free in my head where he's serving, they're like, oh, we want eggs with no eggs. Yeah. He's like, who ordered that? He was terrifying, right? Because yes, he was a gay man who they try to, you know, say that he's feminine, he's a sissy, whatever. But then he rolled up and he was like, y'all, I am terrifying. Look at me. I'm swole. I will F you up. I don't know if we could curse or not, but no, if this is me in person, I'd say the word. But I am not the one. Exactly. Try God, not me.
You will eat this food however I make it.
Right. Where else you gonna go? There's one diner here.
Nope. Letitia, tip your waitress.
Tip your waitress. Exactly. So I loved it. James, how did you feel about Lafayette?
I mean, to be honest, it was the first strong LGBT character, like strong LGBT character that I saw on screen week after week, and was a standpoint in that series, to the point where when the protagonists were in trouble, who did they go see? They went to Lafayette. Lafayette kept them from
always.
And the thing is, we're talking about vampires here. You know what I'm saying? And Lafayette like held it down time after time again throughout that entire series.
Yes. All right, y'all. We are running out of time here. I just wanted, first of all, super honored that we were able to kind of
absolutely
kick off this event. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hope you guys had you guys had a great of time as I did, James. If you are looking for either one of us, our main source is definitely Instagram, and that's where you can find us. You can find me at Fantastic Frankey, Frankey. There we go, like the key to your heart, or the key to breaking these stereotypes. And James, let them know where you can find those.
You can find me on IG or Twitter under Grandmaster Facts. That's FAQS at the end. I'm totally available. I'm also you can find me through my podcast, the Facts Project podcast, which is also on YouTube or any place that you basically listen to podcasts, where we highlight a lot of indie Black creators and definitely conversations in culture. And you can also see me on the Party Nerds podcast, where I am a chair member and highlighter of all things in comic news.
Yeah. And thank you guys all for coming. I mean, This is great. This is great, y'all. I had a great time, and y'all were great.
The comments were I'm sorry, I'm about to cuss. The comments were great. I would say
They were great. They were great. And y'all, I never timed something so perfectly. We're like, I hear it beeping like, yo, 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 what's up? So yeah, please check out all the panels. Support all the Black who are on this floor today. Okay.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of our friends that are in here today showcasing their work. Pretty much, there's a lot of them showcasing indie comics. There's a lot of them showcasing their animations and everything like that. Please, 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 please support them as much as possible.
Exactly. So we're going to sign off here. But yes, I hope you guys all have a fantastic week.